Well, the Dodgers season is over. They dropped their Cactus League opener, but there were some positives. So let's talk about those. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. This is a daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, and you can make that easier by subscribing to get notified when our episodes are ready or when we go live on YouTube. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. I'm Vince Samperio, usually joined by my co-host Jeff Snyder, but he's out today. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team for over a decade in a few different ways, writing about the team, talking about the team, interviewing players, being in the press box, being in the locker room, all that type of stuff. And now we're here to bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue, like we've been doing for the last 6 seasons, going into the 7th season here on Locked On Dodgers. And we're here to talk Dodgers once again. The Dodgers had their Cactus League opener. Baseball is officially back, and it was fun for about an inning or so, and then it wasn't as fun. But either way, it was fun because the Dodgers were playing baseball again, and the regular season starts in less than a month, and the Dodgers can rightly defend their title. So we're going to talk about the positives from the game, but first I want to start off with Bobby Miller and the scary moment that he had in the 3rd inning. Bobby Miller was on the mound and took a ball that was hit 105.5 miles an hour off the bat of Michael Busch, and it went off Bobby Miller's head. It was a scary moment initially when it happened, especially the way Bobby Miller fell. But ultimately, it seems that the worst has been avoided. He came out of the game under his own power. It didn't appear that he ever lost consciousness. Max Muncy joked after the game that when they went to check on him, Bobby Miller was upset that he had hung the curveball. So Muncy said he wasn't too worried at that moment about the injury. But yeah, Dave Roberts said, quote, it squared him up pretty good. It was kind of the front side of the head, and you can just see the distance that it traveled once it hit. So there was some deflection, but it hit him pretty flush. And, in the moment, obviously, very scary. These types of moments are always scary, especially, like I said, the way Bobby Miller fell. It was like this could be, something that's not going to be fun to watch or not going to be fun to follow up on. But, he even took to Twitter after the game. He said, thank you to everyone who has reached out. Really means a lot. Scary moment. I'm good. All praise to the man above. Can't wait to get back on the mound. So all in all, he's in concussion protocol. Dave Roberts said, they'll wait for that. They'll let him regroup a little bit, see, how he feels and make sure he's okay. And then he'll get back out there when the time is right. And something with like this, obviously Bobby in the moment was able to worry about the curveball that he hung. It seems to be that he's in good spirits, at least via social media. But this is something that, you don't know until you get back on a mound. And even you don't know until you get back on a mound in a game, how you're going to feel, whether you're going to have, some kind of PTSD or some kind of, you don't know what's going to happen when he gets back on the mound. Is he going to feel scared? Is he going to be worried about it? I have to imagine he's probably had a comebacker go off him before. But again, you don't know for sure how people are going to react to this until it happens in the moment. So, I'm hoping that no concussion, Bobby Miller clears that, he can get his head right and, worry about what he needs to worry about in the moment. And then when the time is right, he can come and come back and hopefully not have any lingering effects or lingering issues, from such a moment like this. So, praise up for Bobby and hope he's all right. And Yeah, man, it's tough to see this type of stuff, especially in the first game of spring. But all in all, it seems like the best case scenario, especially after seeing the initial hit. So the Dodgers did lose this game 12-4. Don't worry, the season is not over, and there was a few positives to get out of this. So we're going to talk about that. Yoshinobu Yamamoto got the start. He went 1 2/3 innings, did give up 3 hits, struck out a pair, gave up no runs. And I do think, with the spring, Jeff and I tried to say, and it's a weird balance to go through of not worrying about spring stats, but also maybe worrying about spring stats. Uh, when it comes to hitters, I think it's more straight up. Some hitters may be working on a swing tweak or maybe working on approach at the plate in terms of maybe swinging earlier in the count or letting the count get later in the count, whatever it is. But for the most part, hitters, it's just a matter of getting back into shape. Pitchers as well, but pitchers could work on things that would directly affect how good they are in the moment. Like, if you're working on a different fastball, if you're working on fastball placement, you're only throwing fastballs, or you're working on a new pitch, or you're working on, a new grip, or you're working on getting ahead in the count with off speed. Like, there's different things you can work on that in the moment you're not worried about getting hit hard. Now, for the most part, that's probably pitchers that are more established. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is established. If he was working on something specific and had given up a few runs, ultimately, I'm not going to worry too much. People may worry, but I'm not going to worry too much. But in this outing, he did give up the 3 hits. And ultimately, it didn't end up mattering. He did get a big strikeout when he needed, when he had runners on the corners. And for me, the most exciting part was the velocity. He hit 96, touched 97, and that's pretty good. On February 21st, Yoshinobu Yamamoto touching 97. That's fun to see, especially in a spring training game. As much as you may have, you may be hyped for being back on the mound or anything else. I got to imagine it's different than coming out to a major league crowd in a major league stadium and feeling that energy. But that's sharp. 96 miles an hour, that's sharp, touching 97. You've got to imagine his arm's only going to get stronger as we go through. And for the Dodgers, you got to imagine they're happy with this performance. It was before the game, it was stated he'd go 1 inning, and then if that was fine, then he'd go into the second inning in turn, based on usage and pitch count and all that type of stuff. And the fact that he was able to get 5 outs in his first spring outing is very encouraging. And I think Jeff, in the episode the other day with Clint, was talking about how, I think it was Jeff or Clint, one of them had Yamamoto as a guy to be in the Cy Young race or even win the Cy Young. And it's hard to not get excited about Yamamoto based on everything. Like, you take away 2 starts against the Padres in the regular season last year, and his numbers are ridiculous. Obviously, you can't take away bad starts, but those were the first 2 starts that he made. After that point, he was really, really, really good. Got hurt, came back, adjusted, and was really good. Obviously, he had a little bit of a struggle in the first game of the postseason, but then after that, it was pretty solid the rest of the way and was a big reason the Dodgers were able to win the World Series. So for Yamamoto, seeing him come out this spring so strong, I think he's ready to take that next step into, okay, I am, becoming an ace. And for the Dodgers, on a team that has Blake Snell, who's won 2 Cy Youngs, and a team that has Tyler Glasnow, who has all this stuff but just hasn't been able to stay healthy, a team that has eventually Shohei Ohtani and, an older Clayton Kershaw. If Yamamoto can step up and be that guy, that would just make the rest of the team even better and, kind of put that promise of the contract that he signed in even better perspective than it already is, because, you weren't sure. You know what the stuff is, you could bet on the person, but you're still not sure until they come over and do it. And so far, from what we've seen, Yamamoto has come over and done it. And looking forward to continuing to see him this spring and into the regular season. So there were a couple other positives from this game. We're going to talk about that next. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And FanDuel right now, they've had it for a while, but if you want to get in the game, but you missed the start of the game, it's fine because FanDuel has live betting. You can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the action or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in that action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets on the same game parlay. If you had watched the Lakers yesterday and you saw that, I think LeBron's going to have a night, and you think, I think LeBron might get 40 points tonight, and you had to put a live bet on LeBron 40-plus points, you would have came out a winner because LeBron hit that 40-point mark at the end of the game. So FanDuel's live betting feature is fun because it keeps you in the game even if you weren't there at the start of the game, or you can build on a late game rally or find a player that's getting hot. So make sure you go check out the FanDuel app because it's easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. And right now, new customers from FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's one $5 bet. You can turn that to $150 in bonus bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. And you can make that easier by subscribing to get notified when episodes are ready or when we're going live. And if you're on YouTube already, you can check out Locked On Sports Day and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. All right. So other positives from this game, in a 12-4 loss, you would imagine that there wouldn't be too many positives. But when you look at who was pitching when a lot of these runs were scored, that in itself can be positive. Yamamoto threw a scoreless inning. You had Bobby Miller had given up a walk and the hit, and then, those two runs ended up coming to score. But that's because Justin Jarvis, somebody that I've never heard of before, had come in to pitch. I feel like when someone gets hurt and you come into pitch, even though you get unlimited warm-up pitches, you probably never really feel as comfortable as you would have been if you had just warmed up normally. So he comes in and, he gives up 3 hits and a pair of walks and 4 runs on his own, the 2 runners that Bobby had left on base. So that's where a bulk of these runs came in that third inning. And beyond that, the Dodgers didn't really have too many people that are going to factor into the major league roster pitch in the rest of this game. The one notable was Justin Robleski. He did give up 2 hits and a homer and 2 runs. Not ideal there, but, Robleski's a guy that is pretty far down on the depth chart in terms of finding his way I'm sure he'll pitch in the majors at some point this year. But for opening day consideration, he's not really there. You had Giovanni Gallegos throw an inning, did give up a hit, but no runs. That's a guy who has an outside chance of maybe being on the opening day roster. Somebody with, minor league deal, invite to camp, has been good in the majors before. And with Michael Kopech and Evan Phillips, unsure status of starting the year on the opening day roster because of, being behind due to injury. That's a guy that maybe could find his way on there. I wouldn't bet on it, but that is one name that you can look toward in terms of somebody to look forward to this spring, because the Dodgers don't have many open spots available, really. We've talked about the, last spot for the position players realistically. We've talked about the fight for the 5th spot in the rotation. And maybe some of those guys trickle down to the bullpen depending what happens there. So there's not a lot of battles, but there are some battles. But the other positive is Mookie Betts at shortstop. We talked about the overreaction that could come if Mookie Betts made an error at shortstop. He did not make that error. He got 3 ground balls hit to him. He fielded them all cleanly. He threw them all well, and there was no story about Mookie Betts being shortstop in this game. Obviously, it's a long spring, and he'll get a lot more chances. And we'll just continue to wait and see what he looks like. But all in all, he made all the plays that he had to, and all the plays that were thrown to or hit to him. So on the offensive side, guys only got probably 2 at bats before they headed out of there. Mookie walked, got out. Max Muncy had a hit. Teoscar went 0 for. James Outman 0 for 1. But Eddie Rosario was actually the player that hit the first homer of spring for the Dodgers. And it was on a hanging breaking ball, took it out to right center field. And again, I don't think Eddie Rosario has a chance for this opening day roster at all. But I do think, not sure what his deal came with in terms of opt-outs or anything like that. So is he, trying to rebuild his value personally, or is he, committed to being in the Dodger organization, knowing that eventually he'll probably get a chance because just based on the fact of, injuries and everything else when it comes to the Dodgers, whatever it is, it's always good to see a guy come out and hit a homer in the first game of the spring. Again, I don't think it means much in the grand scheme of things, but if he does have a really hot month in spring, it could open the doors for him to be on the outside consideration. Him being left-handed, same as Michael Conforto, kind of takes him out of the running for anything in terms of opening day roster, just because if you were thinking about platooning Conforto, and I know he had really good numbers against lefties last year, but ultimately in his career, not as good. You're not going to have another lefty that comes in and plays there. And, Rosario really only plays corner outfield, so there's not much versatility there. So realistically, not a spot for him. But if he continues to rake, the Dodgers have options to figure something out, or, somebody gets hurt. That's a good sign that they have somebody there that is hitting well. So we'll see. It's 1 home run. He could go 0 for the rest of the spring. You never know with these games, but David Bodie had 2 hits against his former team, the Cubs. Again, another guy that I can't imagine has a legitimate chance of being on the opening day roster. He's been okay in the past, but never overwhelmingly good. Never really been, a full-time player of sorts, or, an everyday player of sorts. He did hit 304 last year, but that was in 46 at-bats in the majors. So, again, just guys that are going to be good for OKC, good to have in the system, and also guys that are probably candidates if there's injuries to get called up and then get DFA'd when those guys come back. So, that's just the nature and the reality of the situation. The rest of the way, Ha-Seong Kim had a walk. No walk, just batted once. Oh, yeah, he did have a walk, and then he got out the other time, made the plays at second base. So we got to see him for the first time, and, it was just 2 at-bats, so nothing to be too worried about yet. The fun part was later in the game once the starters were out, and we got to see a little glimpse into the potential Dodgers' future. Because Josue Paulo was playing right field, and Zaire Hope was playing left field, and it was obviously fun to think about that being a situation in the future. And also me personally, kind of wild to think, these guys were both born in 2005 and are playing, legitimately playing in spring, invited to Dodgers camp, and, on a team that maybe wasn't as good. There might be a chance that they'd have an outside shot at making the majors this year. We've seen guys come up earlier and earlier in the last decade or so, and teams are being more aggressive with that. The Dodgers haven't had to do that because they've had a really good team in the major leagues already. But Zaire Hope made a couple nice plays in left field defensively, and it was just fun to see them out there, and kind of a glimpse into the future for the Dodgers. We've seen a lot of young guys come up and be invited to camp and get some time out there, and it's really just about getting their reps in, obviously, because they're in spring training and they're getting ready for the regular season, just like any other minor leaguer. But they happen to be in big league camp. They can be around the big league guys. They can ask questions. They can talk to them, whatever the case is. And it'll be fun to to continue to see them this spring, especially, once the Dodgers head out to Japan. And I remember last year we got to see some guys that stuck around in Arizona and get to get more playing time in those games. And, it'll be cool to see that. Hunter Fiducia had a double. That was nice to see. Dalton Rushing was in the starting lineup at DH. Didn't get a hit, but, it's always fun to see these guys and see what they can do and hopefully get it going. So that's pretty much it on the first Cactus League game. Yes, the Dodgers lost 12-4. Ultimately, doesn't matter. Yamamoto looked good. Mookie looked good at short. There was a couple of good things offensively, and we'll continue to get through this Cactus League. The Dodgers play the Cubs again today, this time at the Cubs facility, which if you haven't been to spring training yet, Camelback Ranch is beautiful, but the Cubs stadium is really cool too, and definitely has fun vibes. So if you're already going to the game, have fun. If you're not going, but you're thinking about it because you're in the area, I definitely recommend go checking it out. So Shohei Ohtani looked a little different in his bullpen the other day. There's a reason for that and something that he's looking forward to doing when it comes to pitching. So that's what we're going to get into next. Make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. And each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% in daily value and making it one of the highest protein nuts out there. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. There are different ways you can enjoy your Wonderful Pistachios. There is no shells and there is shells. I'm personally a shells guy. I like to work a little bit in order to get the pistachio out and get it, to satisfy me with the protein and everything else that it has. It's a perfect snack for on the go. It's a perfect snack to have on your desk. My desk back home does have pistachios, but I'm not home, so I don't have the bag to show you. But if I did, I'd be showing it right here. For me, that someone that travels for work, a lot of the times, it's a perfect snack to have. I'll do no shells when I'm on a plane just because, I don't want to have to deal with all that mess. And whoever's sitting next to me may not want to deal with all that mess, but they are perfect for whatever situation you have. So go check out Wonderful Pistachios. Get the satisfying crack of opening the shell or just popping them in your mouth. Whatever it is, get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate you. If you already are an everydayer, if you're not an everydayer, we're in the thick of the season now. Spring games will be pretty much every day. Then we head into the regular season, which is pretty much every day. So why not listen to Locked On Dodgers every day? We're here for you 5 times a week for about 30 minutes. If you listen after the fact, if we go live, but you listen after the fact, you put on that 1.5 speed and you'll get done in less than 30 minutes. So make sure to go check us out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And remember, you can go beyond the podcast, come Locked On Dodgers Insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. You get text directly from us, keeping you up to date with the Dodgers. And you can also get an invite to our Discord server to talk with other Locked On Dodgers insiders. All right, I'm going to talk about Shohei Ohtani. And usually when we talk about Shohei Ohtani, it's the lead of the show. But this one, the Dodgers had a big game. Bobby Miller, had a scary moment, and Shohei Ohtani wasn't in this game. So we decided to wait till later. But something that we didn't really talk about the other day when it comes to Shohei, we've talked a lot about him pitching and the kind of what the plan is in terms of 6-man rotation and the Dodgers and when Ohtani could come back and all that type of stuff. But if you had watched the bullpen the other day, you might have noticed that he was pitching in a windup. And when he's pitched with the Angels so far, or in the big league so far in general, but obviously with the Angels, he's primarily pitched out of the stretch. And, probably something for him to, lessen the load. You go on the windup every single time, you probably get a little bit more tired. As someone who plays pretty much every day, on the offensive side, if any way you could steal energy, that might be a way to do it and still be effective. And ultimately, he's been effective out of the stretch as a pitcher in the major leagues. But Ohtani, talked about why that was or why he's trying out a windup. And he said, quote, Traditionally, I've been throwing from the stretch a lot, but as part of being a baseball player, I do want to explore different options, different avenues to see if I could grow as a player. I do that on the pitching side as well as a hitter. And I think for Ohtani, it's more about the mechanics and, with the windup, with the stretch, it's easier to get your basic mechanics. You could potentially lose a little bit of momentum in terms of going toward the plate and velocity wise. Doesn't seem like Otani really had that issue when pitching out of the stretch. But different people are different. And in the article here on MLB.com, it mentions with the windup, it'll depend how he feels, and how he ramps up, and how the mechanics end up working out. So far, he's only thrown fastballs. We talked about him being 92, 94, which not a big concern at the moment. But this might be something that helps his arm specifically, because it takes a little bit of pressure off your arm. When you're in a windup, you do generate that momentum, and you do use your lower body a little bit more, and that could help alleviate that pressure on his arm and the upper body, and maybe bump up his velocity a couple ticks. Now, obviously, you're not pitching out of the windup if there's runners on base, but hopefully there's never runners on base when Ohtani is pitching. But for Ohtani specifically, I do think that this could help him out in terms of, well, one, if he wants to feel like a more of a baseball player, I think pitching out of the stretch is just as fine. But he has had 2 arm surgeries now, and maybe that's something that he's thinking. There's a lot of strain on his arm, and maybe the mechanics of when his foot lands to where his arm is relative to that, blah blah blah. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know, we're not privy to. But just as someone that knows baseball and pitching a little bit, that's kind of what I would be thinking about, and just maybe more correlation than causation in terms of, hey, Otani's been pitching mainly out of the stretch. He's gotten hurt twice. Maybe he wants to try the windup, and maybe that'll reduce the strain on his upper body. For the Dodgers, they're going to let Ohtani do what he needs to do. They're going to give recommendations, and when it comes down to it, it's just going to be whatever feels more comfortable to him. But this might feel more real to him as a pitcher coming in. You see relievers that sometimes come in and they're out of the stretch all the time, and that might just be because as a reliever, there's a better chance that you're going to pitch in the stretch every time you're out there, because you could come in with the runner on. When you're a starting pitcher, technically, you could never pitch out of the stretch if you never allow a base runner. So, there's just different ways to go about it in that sense. So, we'll continue to monitor the situation with Ohtani. They believe he's on track to get back to the big leagues in May on the mound. They've talked about kind of what the plan is. It's tough. He's probably not going to make rehab starts because he'll be DH for the Dodgers in the starting lineup, but he can throw these sim games, and I think that's kind of what they talked about in this article with the sim games. Is that'll be basically his rehab games. And Brandon Gomes talked about a little bit. He said, quote, "But I think understanding that these sim games will be treated as your rehab games, there will be an inherent uptick in effort. And if he isn't getting out of those what he needs, then we can pivot." And, obviously Ohtani has done this before, recovered from surgery while still playing. But, the sim games should get you through. Ultimately, if they don't get him through, maybe there's a chance he gets a rehab game. I don't know how that would work out. I don't think it's realistic, especially since if the Dodgers don't have Ohtani on the roster, it takes away a bat just because of the two-way nature of him. You have to decide which way you want to go. With Ohtani, you don't have to decide that. So we'll see. We'll continue to monitor Ohtani. That's how the spring goes. We'll see, and we'll monitor, and we'll react to what we need to react to. But it's just so fun thinking about the idea of Ohtani being back on the mound, and having a windup to go with it, and having the ability to do both, the ability to throw 6 shutout innings and hit a homer in the same game. Like, that's going to be fun to look forward to. And Yeah, I'm excited for that, but ultimately, we may have to wait a little bit, and that's fine with me. So we already waited a year. What's a couple months beyond that? So beyond that, for the Dodgers, like I said, they play the Cubs again today. This is our last episode of the week, so we'll talk about all the games or all the news and updates that we get from the spring over the weekend on Sunday night. Jeff should be back then, and we'll get that going. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing to get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live. You can check out Locked On Sports Today, Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. You can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Get text directly from us and get invited to our exclusive Discord server to talk Dodgers with other Dodger fans. You can follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent's91. You can get a hold of us via DM there. You can get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or if you're at home, text my device by podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.